Good morning. Nat King Cole's Unforgettable introduces Viewpoint. This morning, a program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. Election time is here, but we'll leave the politicians out and just talk about personalities and perspectives. The main perspective this morning would being tourism. First thing we do, Mr. Thomas, is kind of start out with we always try to start with a kudo. And this morning, I noticed, and this is kind of coming off left field, you know.
You've been in left field before, haven't you?
I've been out of the ballpark several times.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to clarify.
I've been out of the ballpark and don't know it. An unusual approach to the Lenten season. First Presbyterian young minister Adam Quinns is, I hope I've pronounced that right, Adam, and I apologize if I didn't, had decided to take the church to the street. And I read the headline, Ashes to Go. Well, that's kind of a catching headline. The traditional Ash Wednesday, which is today, folks from all over the world go to the church and get the ashes on their foreheads, indicating that they are aware of the beginning of Lent. And Adam, thinking out of the box, and sometimes that's kind of a necessary thing. Nobody knows that better than Bill Thomas. Had decided to take your church to the street, and we'll employ the ashes at anybody's request out there. Interesting.
I just wish he had a nicer day weather-wise.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of nicer days, I got to thinking, Jim, coming up, if anybody left the brass monkeys out in the several days, the procreative problems with the brass monkeys is done for.
Yeah.
There's no question about that.
Bad day for well diggers, too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Derriere. Well, anyway, I wanted to kind of tip my hat to Adam for thinking out of the box, but it's a different approach. And there will be some naysayers and say that doesn't belong on the street. Indeed, a lot of people on the street maybe need to find a church. Mm-hmm. And who knows? So, good for him. Tip my hat to him. The subject of the day will be tourism and its impact on Atlanta, Elkhart, Lincoln, Mount Pulaski, Beeson, Burton View, and Broadwell. It's a big thing here. And Bill, give us your official title as regards to, well, you wear a lot of hats, but the one about tourism. Let's talk about that for a minute.
About tourism. It's a pretty new hat, and it is, I am chairman of the Route 66, the Road Ahead Initiative.
Now, this is a national organization.
Yes, this is a national organization.
I want to emphasize that.
There are about 18 of us on a steering committee from everywhere from Chicago to L.A., through all 8 states that Route 66 runs. There's a representative. Mm-hmm. And I mean folks not just related to tourism. I think this committee is a really good group simply because we also have folks from departments of transportation, mm-hmm. from state offices of tourism, mm-hmm. from state Route 66 associations, mm-hmm. some business owners from along 66. Mm-hmm. So it's a very diverse group, all passionate about Route 66 and tourism.
Well, you and I have talked before about the Route 66, Ms. Teague, and I have made it a point to look at the registers at the Palms Grill, and now more recently with their open of our wonderful college museum, and I make it a point to see who's been there and signed their names. The depth, the geographic depth of the people, it's amazing.
It is. It's global. Mm-hmm. It is also regional and local, but mm-hmm. when you use the word amazing, yes, you refer to the global community that knows about Route 66 and knows about Illinois in particular. If I'm remembering correctly, the State Office of Tourism has done a study the last few years mm-hmm. Trying to figure out what are the biggest tourist draws to Illinois. Mm-hmm. And it's Chicago, Route 66, and Abraham Lincoln, in pretty much that order.
In that order.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Route 66 is probably the number one for international tourists. It's just amazing the degree of knowledge that our friends overseas have.
Yes, you and I talked the other day when we were up at that nice little distillery tasting. That was a nice evening. Those folks put on a nice program.
Mm-hmm.
But you and I commented about this thing, and I made the comment at the time, as I recall, that was more than yesterday, I might recall.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That I was impressed by the number of continental Europeans that come over here.
Yes.
It seems to me, and you kind of backed that up, and it's what I perceived, that there's an abundance of them.
There's an abundance, and especially from Germany, from the British Isles, and really interestingly, I just think this is fascinating, Bill, from the Czech Republic. As a matter of fact, the Czech Republic has one of the strongest international Route 66 organizations overseas. They are so passionate.
Go figure.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
They are so passionate about Route 66 that not only do they've come over here the last couple of years and done promotional films, but they've also set up, as I was telling you, a bed and breakfast up in the mountains in the Czech Republic that is completely Route 66 themed, so that anybody who's there in the Republic who can't make it over here to the U.S., they can still go to some place, yes, and get the flavor of 66.
That's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
I just find that I've used that word too much.
Well,
I'm sorry about that.
No, it's a legitimate word to use. They were here in town. When was it? Just last summer or the summer before? I can't remember which. Doing one of their promotional films, and they had gone the entire length of the route. Filming what amounted to an almost feature-length film just to promote Route 66 to their friends and families back in the Czech Republic.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. Have you done the entire route?
Yes, in 1964, in the back of a Chevy Bel Air station wagon with no seat belts. It was a wonderful experience. Yes.
And you had that 64. Well, you didn't have your children then.
Oh, goodness, no, I was the children.
You were the children.
Then my brother and sister and I and my mom and dad, who brought along my aunt so that she could babysit us. We all bounced around in the back of that. You didn't
her in the top of the car, did you?
No. But I have this wonderful, indelible memory of 66 in many ways that matches what people who travel the road today are looking for. They want to experience what it was like. Well, I remember we did the whole thing from start to finish. We stopped in Arizona, had our picture taken next to the Indian and his burro, went to the rattlesnake farms, all of that.
All the tourist traps.
All of that, yes.
Well, it occurs to me that the Holiday Inns of those days would be like Bailey's Cabins.
That's right.
We had at the bottom of the Cemetery Hill out there on old Route 66.
Oh, I don't know about that. Tell me about
Cabins.
that.
Well, I judged my memory. That's a little bit now, but anyway. I'm judging on the right-hand side of the road there. I know exactly where it was. There were probably a half a dozen cabins.
Yes.
It would be 8 by 10 or something like that, overnight cabins. And it was called Bailey's Cabins.
I don't suppose there's anything left
out
of
there?
those.
No footprints or anything. Anybody out there at 648-5510, for any other geezers out there that might remember that, I'd like to have somebody give me a ring on that.
Now, you probably already know this, but I was fascinated to learn when Route 66 was first built in 1926, people began, it became right away a very popular road to travel, especially for tourists. But there were no places for them to stay, so they would camp. So the very first overnight accommodations were actually tourist camps. Then the bright entrepreneurs decided, well, let's build some cabins, just like Bailey's cabin.
They were. They're very modest.
We actually had one in Atlanta, one tourist cabin. But what I'm fascinated by
Are you renting that out now?
No, we're not renting it out, no.
Okay.
What I'm fascinated by is the fact that someone quickly came up with the idea, well, rather than build these separate little cabins, let's build them right next to each other and put a single roof over it, and that's where we got our motels. I just really like that progression.
Do you recall how long it took your family to go? It would be a long time.
It was a 2-week vacation.
Oh, I'm sure.
And, yeah, out and back. Yeah, the big draw for the kids, knew we were going to Disneyland. The big draw for my folks, they knew they were stopping in Las Vegas. So,
where did you live at that time, your family?
In Cuba.
In Cuba.
Illinois.
That's up around Canton?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you thought I was just another pretty face.
No, I remember I was so sheltered growing up in this small town.
Yeah.
That trip, I was probably 9 years old, 9 or 10. That was the first time I had ever eaten breakfast in a restaurant. It was an absolute thrill.
That would have an indelible impression on a kid like that.
Mm-hmm.
The economics of tourism are very incredible. You take the tourist dollar out of Logan County, and that would be a big vacuum.
Right.
You have some numbers
well, I know
that, Bill?
I know the numbers for sure in Atlanta because I'm able to track sales tax figures there. We have done a study tracking sales tax since 2008. 2008, by the way, is the year before we really started getting any tourists. So we use that as our baseline. And Bill, it's fascinating. From 2008 through the present, our sales tax revenue during the 5 primary tourism months has gone up 43%.
Now, that's in the community of Atlanta.
Right.
We can translate that down and move down the line to Lincoln and on to Elkhart on 66. We have I know there are lots of efforts to market Old Abe.
Oh, yes.
Lots of efforts. At the same time, I would say that in some measure we've kind of had it hiding our light under the bushel because we're coming up, maybe not short on effort, but we should have a lot more Abe Lincoln tourism.
We should.
That's a big draw.
Yeah, one of the challenges that I think we face, Bill, is just obviously Abraham Lincoln has wonderful name recognition. Mm-hmm. What he didn't have was a television show in the 1960s that popularized him. Yeah. And that, to this day, has an amazing impact on drawing people to Route 66. So I look at it as we're beneficial to have both. We are really positioned well to leverage tourism in this county because we have both attractions.
I think we'd put you in charge of producing a TV special, and we could star Jim Ash, good-looking kid that he is, and we could go around and have him do it for nothing.
And you're going to direct, or what's your role?
No, I just kind of like sit in the back with you.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But seriously, there have been a lot of TV programs about Lincoln and so forth, but maybe something with emphasis on tourism in what I call Abesville, including Mount Pulaski, of course, because of their heritage with that wonderful old courthouse over there.
And I tell you, they have a fantastic project going on over there. They do
that.
I've been working with them. As a matter of fact, I'm going back there next week to help them some more because when they finish restoring the courthouse, and I have absolute confidence that they're going to raise the money they need and actually do that, then they're going to have a real treasure, a real economic development asset that they can leverage, because if they turn it into a place where folks can go and experience things and really learn about and feel the legacy of Lincoln, it's going to draw many more people to Logan County.
I was interested the other night when you and I happened to be up there at the same meeting, and I was sitting there looking to the floor.
Yes.
And the thought occurred to me, Abraham Lincoln trod these very boards.
Yes. You're saying that right now, and I just got goosebumps.
There's a mystique about that.
It is. Well, it's one of only 2 actual courthouses that still exist that he practiced law in when he rode the 18th Circuit. The other one's up in Metamora.
Well, happily, we've got folks over there who are deeply involved. that are bound determined they're not going to let that gem get away.
Right.
And of course, right now, the first thing they have to do is structural things, because the roof is a big problem, and without that, there's no point in trying to do the rest of it. So we take our hats off to those folks over there.
Yeah. I want to put a plug in for them, because I know they have lots of activities scheduled to help with their fundraising campaign. And just Google Mount Pulaski Courthouse, and you'll find the address for their website. They've already held a couple of very successful events, but I know they're planning lots more.
Amazing what they have been able to do so far. Gene and I went that little one over there at the Brickyard, or whatever the name is. Yes. And nice evening. Fun evening. One of Tom Martin and his wife, Cheryl, and the others over there, too. Are involved with it, and they're doing a whale of a job.
I'd also, if you don't mind, I'll make a request on their behalf.
All right.
One of the things our Logan County Economic Development Partnership Office is doing to help them is rounding up letters of support from each of the municipalities in the county, because the more they can show folks from whom they're asking for funds that there's a wide base of support, the better. So I would extend an open invitation on behalf of the Mount Pulaski Courthouse project that if you're the chairman of an organization or any other kind of civic entity, write a letter of support. One paragraph, just say, we think this is a great project, send it over to the folks in Mount Pulaski so they can add it to their file and show people how many folks are supporting their effort. Would it be
meaningful for individuals or it be primarily organizational?
Primarily organizations, I would think.
I would understand that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the plans on the board. Are you at liberty to discuss any plans that are on the board for this summer's activities, the emphasis that you're putting on certain things as far as
tourism is concerned? Sure. I'll make sure you know so that you and Gene can come back if you want. The good folks from J.K. Williams Distillery that were there this past Friday night in Atlanta, or a couple Friday nights ago.
Pretty neat.
They're going to come back during the summer because they make seasonal varieties of their whiskey, and we want to have them come back and let us do another tasting with some of their products. So that'll be sometime during the summer. We don't have a date yet.
We won't put a great invitation to Carrie Nation?
No, we won't be asking Carrie. I think she's otherwise occupied that night. Yeah.
Well, that activity up there at the Palms and the activities they have down there in Elkhart, those are fun things for people in the community to do.
Yeah, they have a wonderful dinner program down there.
Yeah, they sure do.
Elkhart,
Peter
dinner program series.
They do a great job. So I guess we can only say in regards to those, stay alert, folks, and avail yourselves of those opportunities.
Absolutely. Our Economic Development Office has been working with Gillette and Andrea and Peter and Jean Tweet. Do you know Jean from Elkhart? No. She runs one of the small shops.
Oh, okay, I do now, yes.
Downtown.
Yes.
They're just a great group, very dynamic, very passionate about their community, and we've been working with them to help increase their exposure and try to get even more visitors to come to Elkhart.
Well, we're doing some commercials for the folks down there in Elkhart, which brings to mind we need to do some commercials for our sponsors here. So we'll take a couple of seconds. Mr. Ash will flip a switch or two or four. Welcome back to Viewpoint, your program of personalities and perspectives. We'll leave out the other part, the other P for a while, because we have a great personality here and a great perspective as regards tourism in Logan County. I guess, Bill, it would be safe to say that the word tourism, that could be, if it were defined as a firm, a business, that could be defined as one of our biggest employers.
Oh,
as far as up and down the breadth of the tourism business from border to border and coast to coast, that represents a huge, huge economic dollar.
It does. And as far as I'm concerned, I use this little phrase when I'm talking with folks to get them to think in the right way about tourism and economic development. I'll say all tourism is economic development, but all economic development isn't necessarily tourism. All tourism is. There are some of us who have sort of a dual perspective on it, in that we're just passionate about Route 66 or Lincoln or whatever tourism thing we're trying to promote. But bottom line, the real reason we're all promoting it is because we know it can help the economic base of our community and our area.
Yeah, just take this little community of Atlanta to your left and my right, as we said. The folks who come in here to look at Hall's Elevator and points of interest that you have here, the Palms Grill, and those folks have done a great job on that bed and breakfast. That
yes,
building.
That
really
wonderful.
Looks neat. I hope that's an economic success. It's sir an artistic success at this point in time. And I
think we're going to. I think we're going to see the real proof in the pudding this tourist season because it opened sort of off-kilter with the season for getting marketing materials and visitors guides and everything ready.
Right.
But now this year it's in all of those. So we're hoping that has a real good impact.
Well, you bring a lot of tourist dollars into the community, and Lord knows that's vital.
Let me give you one example. This just happened yesterday, Bill.
Okay.
You mentioned the Hawes Elevator.
Yeah.
Because we had a gentleman show up yesterday in town, went to the library and started asking some questions, and they directed him over to our office. Turns out he sits on the board of a grain co-op up north of Bloomington. I'm afraid I can't remember the name of the co-op, but anyway, he's looking for a place to hold a board retreat. 35 people. He came across the Hawes Elevator, and he thought, oh my gosh, I wonder if there's any place in this little town of Atlanta where we could hold our day-long retreat because my people would love to visit this old grain elevator. Well, that's now going to, it's not tourism, but the Hawes Elevator side is tourism, so it's attracted them. Yes. So now they're going to come, they'll use the back room at the grill, they'll bring some money to the grill because they eat there, they're renting out a meeting space. That's the way it happens, and that's the way you work, the economic development.
A little plus, but it's not really a little plus, it's a big plus.
It's a very big plus. Yeah, and I'm sure you're seeing, and Lincoln is going to see, the same impact because of the new museum at the college.
Yes, we're beginning to see more
That's
and more.
That's just getting off its feet in terms of drawing people in.
And incidentally, I would say on the air, we need more volunteers there. Gene and I volunteer each Thursday. For a couple of hours, and there's a lot of folks that don't have all that much to do now. A bunch of us geezers and geezerettes. I'd invite some of you geezers and geezerettes to call the college and talk to Ann Mosley there. We really need some volunteers, and it's a fun thing to do. You meet people from all over the world.
Yeah.
And you get a chance to have a little discourse with them, and it's an interesting thing. So,
well, and just a big thank you to you and Gene and all the other volunteers, because we have our set of volunteers in Atlanta. They have the same thing in Pulaski and down in Elkhart, and I don't know where we'd be without you guys.
Well, when we get to our age, hopefully a little bit younger, folks don't have that much to do, although somehow I keep my days busy. I don't know how. But any event, it's a fun thing to do. The museum there, as I say, I've looked at the register, and again, we have a lot of foreign visitors. And, of course, we have that plus of having old Abraham Lincoln.
Yes.
And a lot of Lincoln memorabilia. And the upstairs, the presentation, visual, video presentation gets good reviews.
Very, very good quality. It's an amazing facility for a town the size of Lincoln.
It's amazing. The folks that did that are right over here in Rantoula, Illinois.
Yes.
Taylor Studios.
Yep.
And Mark McDonald did who you recognize and know, did a thing on them. I found it very interesting. They're worldwide known. Oh
yes, they're quite a firm. Yeah.
So, how does? We've got a lot of things going on around on the square. in the summer months. They've changed the format just a little bit. Now, I don't know that we want to get into that discourse this morning. We want to offend any of our listeners. So, and that could do that. Seriously, when you bring the wine tasting, for instance, that brings a lot of people. They put a big tent down there. That brings a lot of people around. The Chris Grau's barbecue cook-off thing is a huge thing for the community. And by the way, I'm amazed that the type of equipment some of those folks bring in here. I mean, it's like
there are a few dollars invested in some of those grills. We're not just talking a Weber.
No. It's an amazing thing, and these guys are all proud of it too, and rightfully so. Do you envision projects that large for the community of Atlanta?
Well, probably not quite that large, but our version of them. I know we're planning another car cruise in on Saturday, June 13th, and we had our first ever barbecue cook-off last summer, so we want to do that again. What I try to do, and what the others that help when we're putting together an event like that, we try to find something really unique or unusual. For example, for a couple of years we had the electric vehicle cruise-ins.
Right.
Okay, we want something that is not being done necessarily elsewhere, or something that is a unique attraction. And I think we've got one for the cruise-in on June 13th.
You heard it here, folks.
I was putting together dinner programs for the grill for this past season. And a good friend of mine from Atlanta, Larry Brandt, came to my office one day with this book that he had just bought. And it was a history of the Greyhound Bus Company, and in particular, Greyhound Scenic Cruiser buses. You remember those?
Sure, double-deckers. They kind of...
Double-deckers, 40 feet long. They were only built from, I think it was 1956 to 58. The purists will correct me, but somewhere in that neighborhood. Anyway, I looked at the book, and I was fascinated by the style of the buses and all that. And I looked at the author, and I thought, I wonder where that author is from. He'd be an interesting person to know. So thank goodness for Google. I Googled him. Bill, he lives in Peoria, Illinois. And he has... as a hobby, he collects and he fully restores Greyhound Scenic Cruiser buses.
That'll be a great draw.
Well, he has 4 of them, and he's going to bring one over to the cruise-in for us, yes.
I think that'd be a great draw.
Yep.
That's another part of history.
Oh, yes.
Down to the boards now.
I think what makes me most excited, and you see me wiggling around in my chair because I do get so excited about this, for me, the essence of what attracts tourists boils down to it has to be an experience, and it has to touch as many senses as that experience can touch. So what I'm getting at, for example, the grill. The grill is a wonderful tourist experience because it touches so many of your senses. Taste, sight, feel, touch. One of my biggest thrills was a couple of years ago, we actually had a Greyhound Scenic Cruiser bus on its way to a rally in Texas pull up in front of the grill and stop. We finally got smell, because you could smell the diesel.
Exhaustion,
yes, and that place used to be a Greyhound bus stop, so all of a sudden everything was there. So we're going to have another one come.
And interesting enough, in a lot of small communities, those bus stops, they would stop if a light was on.
Yes.
That light would indicate they had a passenger or passengers.
Sure.
Want to go with them.
Sure. That's what you read the articles in the Argus. The grill, the big neon sign we have out front now, it had a light on the bottom of it, and you simply flipped the switch inside, and the bus driver knew to stop.
Which remind me of Malloy's Cafe in Lincoln on Chicago Street. Was long now gone.
Okay.
Before we had two-way radios, et cetera, the merchant policeman would go around and check the doors.
Right.
And rattle and make sure everything was secure. And if he walked around the corner on Alvey's corner and looked down to the light, if the light was on above Malloy's, that meant he had to go in there and call the station, because that was somebody needed a policeman.
That's great. That's great.
Mayberry. Mayberry.
Oh, nothing wrong with that. Speaking of sort of Mayberry things, things. Locals in Atlanta have told me that the bus stop wasn't always just used to get on and off the bus. I've heard some of the women in town relate the story of how at prom time, because there was no florist in town in the 40s, prom flowers, corsages, and boutonnieres would be sent up on the Greyhound bus from Lincoln, and the high school kids would be waiting at the grill in order to get their flowers before they went to prom. Isn't that great?
Well, I have kind of an aside in that. When I was a kid over at the University of Illinois, we'd send our laundry home, and then they had a special box. Canvas, it was cardboard wrapped in canvas, and you had two addresses, one for me there and one for my mother. And I'd send my laundry home, take it down to the corner and put it on the bus, and then I'd go down, she'd call me and tell me it's going to be on the bus, and I'd go down to the corner and get it. Now,
can you do laundry yet? Have you figured out how to do it yet, or are you still?
But now, that's almost a Mayberry thing.
Yeah, it is.
Think of that. The Hawes elevator reminded me, 648-5510. There might be some folks out there who'd like to comment on tourism and ask Bill Thomas, our guest this morning. We appreciate your being here, Bill.
Oh, always my pleasure.
I can relate to the Hawes elevator very well. Not that elevator per se, but I'll never forget the first time my grandfather turned me loose to bring a wagon load of grain to the Burton View elevator.
Oh my.
Horse-drawn.
Yes.
And that was a big deal.
I was a city boy. My dad was a coal miner, so I knew nothing of farming. But it was a real thrill for me when I was on the elevator board. We used to work with a gentleman down around Greenview who had teams of horses, and he would bring them up so that once a year we could run a wagon through with horses and let people see how the dump log system worked. It was an amazing process. Yeah, well, I got to sit up on the wagon when the dump log went up, and I mean, I felt like I was 10 years old again. That was quite an experience. Well, that was the way they did it then. Yeah. And the Hawes elevator is working, doing demonstrations. It's great for people who have no cognizance of that way of life. Right. That was a big thing. That's another one of those sensory things. One of the main reasons we wanted that gentleman to come over and bring his team of horses and wagon is because you can go and visit the Hawes elevator anytime that you want to now, but if you really want to get a feel for it, you want to be able to hear those horses' hooves on that wooden ramp as they're going up. You want to smell the horses. I mean, it's just a totally different experience when you put those pieces together. You smell the horses well when you plowed corn all day. I'll give you that experience. I'm not yearning for that one. There's so much going on, and all of us, we get busy in our everyday lives. We got a living to make and families to take care of, and so we get involved in our own little bubble, so to speak, and we fail to remember, although we know about it, we just fail to remind ourselves that there's a lot going on in the community, that we have a great link to the past. Yeah, we do. And that you ask anybody in the field of tourism who one of their most difficult markets to reach is, and it's the people living within a mile of their attraction. Yeah, we have so much to offer here in this county and in our individual communities, but getting folks to come out and take advantage of those and visit them, it's, I guess, just in our American nature, we want to wander. Oh, I suppose this is as good a time as any way for confession. Burying of the soul. I've been to Abe Lincoln's tomb twice. Oh, okay. Yeah, how many miles is that from my house? First one, I was a Boy Scout. That was obligatory for me. All the Boy Scouts. And the second time, I had an interesting experience going down the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon, and I met a young man from Japan who was here on a Fulbright. Oh. And he was out at Dartmouth or one of the East schools out there. And this was in August, and so Gene and I invited him to spend Christmas with us. And it was very interesting having him as a house guest. But anyway, the point I make is that's the second time I've been to Abe Lincoln. I took this young man from Kyoto, Japan, down there, Well, I hate to admit, I'd never been to the courthouse in Mount Pulaski until I started working with the foundation group.
And isn't that a gem to be inside?
Oh my gosh.
There? Yeah.
It's a priceless artifact. Now what we have to do is help them figure out the best ways to use it once it's restored. Yeah.
Well, those folks, they have a way of getting things done over there.
Yes, they sure do.
I've always tipped my hat in that direction. The major courthouse in Sangamon County, state, is the one that they took apart by block,
Yeah.
marked and numbered the blocks, stored them at the state fairgrounds, went in there and dug out the whole thing and created an underground parking, and then put that rascal to bed. And there again, I'd never been inside that till 2 years ago, and I was down there in the square, and I had plenty of time, so I just walked over there and went in and wandered around.
Yeah, that one gives me goosebumps too, because you remember that's the place where Lincoln did the House Divided speech.
Yeah,
I mean, to be able to stand in the same room
Think of that.
where he delivered that, that's incredible.
You know, just as an aside, those folks were pretty tough dudes in those days.
A lot tougher than many people know if you haven't really read your history. Yes.
You know, they talk about riding the circuit, which is as lawyers did. That wasn't like getting in your car and driving to Atlanta.
No, imagine riding the circuit today. Yeah, that would be pretty nasty.
Yeah, right. Do you have any bubbles in the air or balls bouncing that you want to refer to at this point in time, Billy? Oh, sorry, it's Bill.
Oh, yeah. No, I told you long ago I've given you permission to do
Nobody
that.
else.
You alone, you and my sister, that's it. Probably the biggest thing is I want people to pay attention to, and we're going to be communicating about the things that this National Route 66 Committee is doing. We'll be meeting again via teleconference next week and establishing some specific groups to work on things, and probably the biggest thing we'll start working on is we are going to seek federal legislation to designate Route 66 as a national trail. It does not have that designation right now, and there are a very limited, number of national trails. There's the Oregon Trail, the Lewis and Clark, etc. Well, we want to give it that designation so that it's sort of a further layer of protection to save the road and make sure that it's preserved.
You know, the wonder of it is that hasn't been done before.
I know.
Isn't that amazing?
I know. Well, it'll be one of the first times, if we can get the Congress and the executive branch to sign off on this legislation, it'll be one of the first times that this designation is given to an actual road that is still in use.
An entity, yeah.
Yes. So that's going to be part of the nut we have to crack, but I'm sure we will.
Our guest this morning has been Bill Thomas. Every community should have Bill Thomases in it. We're grateful for the thought and the effort and the time you put into our communities. Tourism is really a big thing, folks. We sometimes we just kind of take it for granted, and we forget that there's a lot of effort and a lot of thought and a lot of time that goes into planning all of these various things that happen. You made a comment earlier, Bill. Now it kind of segs into something about that I found out about tourism, and the final comment would be again Google. Wonderful to be able to...
Wonderful thing.
The thing about tourism is that the reality of the place is quite different from the mythology of it.
Oh, yes, very true.
A lot to be said there. Thank you, Bill Thomas, very much for being with us this morning.
My pleasure. Thanks.